Welcome to The Bottom Line. I'm Pastor Rick Utze from Maranatha Community Fellowship in Plain City, Ohio. You know, I was laying awake the other night. It was like 3 in the morning. I couldn't go back to sleep. And as I'm laying there, I hear something. I hear a train whistle in the distance. And during the day, you don't hear it because there's so much clamor and activity and all that stuff going on that you just don't pay attention to it. I mean, you may actually hear it, you just don't pay attention. But when I was laying there, I heard the train whistle go off, and then a little bit later I hear it go again, and a little bit later I hear it go again. And at every intersection, right, the train is going and blowing its whistle as a warning, right, that it's coming through. And as I thought about that, I thought about the intersections in our life and what happens when we come to crossroads. And the Bible in the Old Testament talks about not turning to the left or right. Like just, you're following God, you're following His direction. He gave those instructions to the kings that they were supposed to do certain things to the people, and we're not supposed to turn to the left or right. We're supposed to follow God. You're not supposed to accumulate too many things on this earth, or the kings too many wives, because it'll turn their hearts away from God. They become idols and we turn away from God. We turn to the left or right for what the world has to offer instead of continuing going. And I got to thinking, that train doesn't turn left or right. Like, it is on the narrow path. It is on the tracks. And the warning sign is for people coming to the crossing saying, hey, don't get in my way because I'm not turning, right? It is not going to turn left or right. And I got to thinking, how do we keep from turning left or right? Like, do we hear the whistle of God's warning in our lives when we come to an intersection and we're tempted to bump Him down, right, in our lives and put other things first? Because there's a danger when that happens, right? We're going to go off path. And here's what Jesus says. Here's His very words to us. It says, calling the crowd along with His disciples, He said to them, if anyone wants to follow me, let him deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me. So He's saying, here's the path. Follow me. And that includes taking up a cross and denying yourself, right? So what are we supposed to do when we follow Jesus? How do we keep from turning to the left or right for what the world has to offer? He says, you need to take up your cross, deny yourself. And then it says, for whoever wants to save his life will lose it. Whoever loses his life because of me and the gospel will save it. So He's saying, you know what? There's two different ways here. You can either lose your life, deny yourself, take up my cross, and that means suffering, shame. That may come in this life because of Jesus Christ. And he goes on, and after he says that, it says, for what does it benefit someone to gain the whole world, yet he loses his life? What can anyone give in exchange for his life? For whoever is ashamed of me and my words in this adulterous, sinful generation, the Son of Man will also be ashamed of him when He comes in the glory of His Father with the holy angels. So He's saying in these things that you can gain the whole world. Like, the left or right has a lot of things to offer you in this world. You can get fame, you can get glory, you can get possessions, you can get all this stuff in this world and forget about God. Or you can stay to follow the tracks, take up your cross, follow Him. Because He says if you go after those things, that when He comes, He's going to be ashamed of you. And I wonder, are we looking forward to when He comes? And I learned this lesson from Tamara at DNA this morning. She was giving an illustration of how when kids get gifts for Christmas, and they, and probably their parents, aren't disciplined or self-controlled enough to allow those gifts to be put under a tree or saved for Christmas, you lose something. You lose the anticipation of Christmas. You lose that looking forward to something good, the gifts that somebody's given you, to what lies ahead in the future that you can partake of. But instead, you have to open all your gifts now, and there's nothing left for Christmas. And so what are you then left with? You're left with just a bunch of broken toys and broken dreams. And there's nothing left for Christmas. And I think that's what Jesus, like, are you anticipating Jesus? Like, are we anticipating that when we get to the end of the road, that He's got promises for us, great promises, and He gives us the Holy Spirit to give us strength to go down that path, so that when we hear the whistle, the warning, it's like, no, I don't need to turn to the left or right after all the things the world has to offer that turns my affections away from Christ. No, I live in anticipation of Jesus coming, the next Christmas, right, so to speak. So that when we go along, and here's the bottom line, so that when we get there, right, we don't have to be ashamed. Like I told you 2 weeks ago, that when he comes, if we're looking to him, we'll never be ashamed. But Jesus says, if you're ashamed of me now, and you go after all these things, I will be ashamed of you when I return. And Jesus is the judge, and he will shame those who are evil and go after other things and deny him. Right? Instead, we're to deny ourselves. So let's do that. Let's live in anticipation of the only one who matters, so that we can live with him forever and ever, so that we can enjoy his presence forever and ever, and so that our lives here aren't just opening everything we can get in this life, right? And then we're left with what when Jesus returns? Nothing but broken toys and broken promises that the world can't deliver. So let's live in anticipation, and we will never, ever be ashamed. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time on The Bottom Line.